Bediso.org. That was through Wix is expired.
Yeah.
And they're expensive and a mess right now, so.
They're usually along.
I told Todd, but you gotta get it up, because I've been telling people, go to
Yes.
Bediso.org, and
Yeah.
they go and there's nothing there. And then I said, well, you can go to Run Sign Up, and it's like a hassle finding it, so.
Yes.
He said he would have it done by the end of this week, because that's
That'd be
really.
great. I've been doing the same thing, so
Okay.
that'd be great.
Where you have to mine it. You know, and we got some big land use issues on that. Hard to find the crowd.
Quite the education. That's really interesting. You're right, it's a tie. A minute early.
How you doing, Kent?
Can barely see your eyebrows.
Yeah, I keep telling you we should have popcorn up here.
I'll go get you some.
Great idea.
All right, well, I guess we'll get started. We appreciate everybody being here. It's a big crowd.
It's good to see you.
But we'll get started. We'll go over everybody that's here, and which is all 5 of us now that are commission members. So we have Joe Chambers to the far left, and Julie Martin, and I'm Bob Hinkie, and John Peterson, and Michael Fortune. Appreciate all of you being here. So, and correct me when I make mistakes, but we'll get started with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I've asked Michael Fortune to.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So item number 1 is the approval of the minutes. Anybody have anything? The only thing that I read, and I don't know, is when we had that last meeting and they were talking about the park, that I don't remember what line it was, and it might be right. I just the Thompsons, can't think of his first name. Mark said that 2 years ago he donated $500,000 to the park, and I was thinking it wasn't 2 years ago. That park's been around a long time, but
His portion, that newest portion.
Yeah.
was that then?
happened
Okay.
In the last couple of years.
Oh, okay, good. Well, then I think it looks good.
I reviewed it and looked at everything, and I thought it looked good too.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I would make a motion that we accept the minutes from our July 9th, 2025 meeting.
Thank you. A second?
I will second that.
Julie seconds that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good job, Ty. Thank you. Okay, we're to the public comments where citizens can express their views on issues that relate to the Planning Commission. I don't think we have anybody here unless Kent Dunkley would like to say something. Was there anybody, any emails or anybody on that? Okay. All right, then we'll close that portion. No public hearing or legislative action, so we'll go to action items. Item number 2, Fox Hollow West preliminary plat. The Providence City Planning Commission will review, discuss, and may take action on this Fox Hollow West preliminary plat for a 2-lot commercial subdivision. And with that, I guess I'll turn the time over to Scarlett.
Okay, this is Kent's project and he is here. He's representing the applicant or the developer actually. This is in the general area of 550 West, 300 South. It's, to orient you, it's between Judge's Car Wash and the current Fox Hollow townhomes that are being, there's a set that are established and then the newest ones being built in the back. The staff report reviews the general plan and the initiatives in the general plan. It reviews the moderate income housing plan and our objectives and strategies. And we're actually going to talk about this later in the next agenda item. But this report has been posted online, so I'm not going to go in detail on all of that. The findings of fact, these are the legal pieces of the puzzle that we start to put into place as we review a development. We look at Utah Code Title 10, Chapter 9A, which is the land use section, and Part 6 talks about subdivisions. 109A 603 talks about notifying the irrigation companies, which we do. And then we review our general plan and our master plans and list them all out. We also list the city code that we look at, which is Providence City Code 8121, which is water availability requirements. And then we list the preliminary plat, lists the 1132 lists the requirements for a preliminary plat. And in our conclusions, we've enacted ordinances that require a subdivision plat comply with the provisions of the municipality's ordinances in provisions with Utah Code 10-9A Section 6. And we did notify the irrigation company. I apologize, I didn't put that on there, but we did notify the irrigation company in compliance with 10-9A 603. In our general plan, the framework map does not suggest a preferred scenario for this area. However, a portion of this area is within the 5 to 10 minute mixed use node. A mixed use node is the small collection of retail and service uses focused on a corner or single block, serving the immediate surrounding neighborhood. Mixture of uses in a horizontal format. Use is different uses adjacent to each other. And then the map in Chapter 4, Neighborhoods and Design Plans, says that this area is suggested to be developed as commercial highway district, which is what it is zoned and what this preliminary plat fits. It supports Key Initiative 1 to support a citywide network of activity centers, public places, and destinations, including commercial areas, neighborhood parks, historic areas, civic places, all linked by streets, sidewalks, pathways, trail, and mass transit. The proposed plan will improve the adjacent section of 300 South by extending the asphalt and striping for a roadside pathway, installing curb, gutter, and sidewalk, which also adds to the continuity for pedestrian and traffic to get from place to place. In our parks, trails, and recreation, since this is a commercial site plan, I'm not going to go into all of this. However, commercial sites are not required to provide park or open space, but they are required to provide landscaping, including landscape buffers. A landscape buffer is a landscaped area whereby trees and other plant materials are used to create a wide landscape park-like garden area around a perimeter or in the side or rear yard of a property in order to physically and visually separate and mitigate the undesirable environmental impacts such as noise, dust, stormwater, etc. between commercial zones and residential zones. This is only applies to the side of this property that is adjacent to the residential zone of the townhomes. They would not have to provide the buffer to the west between another commercial property. So these buffers only apply to the residential zones. The master plan, transportation master plan, figure 19 and figure 32 show this area of 300 South as a major collector with limited access. So they are using a shared access coming in. So there's only the existing access by judges will be expanded for this property. The following comment was included in the 6/9/25 review, and that was that we wanted them to show the major collector cross section and the striping. They did show the cross-section on their newest submittal, but they do not call out that they're going to do anything with striping at this point. This is something that staff can certainly follow up on should you choose to approve this with the conditions in the staff report. I'm not going to go over the master plans at this time, but they have not provided the water availability requirement. I think part of the reason for that is they're not sure what type of Ken can answer for positive, but they're not sure what type of tenants or purchasers other than commercial. And so we will have to work with them on what kind of water needs they're looking at so that they can either pay fee in lieu or dedicate the appropriate water in order to serve the development. And then if we go down the preliminary plat list, there's a few things that are missing. These were on the previous comments as well. They may or may not have an agreement with the neighboring property owners. We just ask that they put a note on the plats letting us know that it hasn't been overlooked. So that's all they need to do. These two things, again, can be easily followed up with staff, but they do need to put whether they either need to provide those copies of those agreements or put a statement that there are none. And then we get over to page 7, the total acreage. And this is kind of tricky. This was a bigger piece of property. This was part of a larger piece of property. In order to separate it from the Champlin property, when they purchased it, they did a boundary line agreement, which is perfectly fine to do. They made one parcel smaller and the other parcel bigger. And you can do that. You don't have to come through the city to do that. State code allows you to do that through the recorder's office. They did that. However, we still need to separate that parcel number from this. In the meantime, Fox Hollow Phase 2 recorded their final plat. And so in a sense, they separated it, but they didn't call it out as part of the subdivision. They just showed that was because their original preliminary plat happened before this boundary line adjustment happened. So their original piece of property that they were working off was a complete rectangle. Between the time the preliminary plat was approved and the final plat was recorded, this property was added to it. So we just need to have it on record that we acknowledge that and it was separated properly. So they need to show that portion of the property, and that's not shown. Our plan also asks for permanent buildings and structures. There's a few that they're not showing. They're like Judge's Car Wash. I don't believe they're showing the building. They are indicating that it's there, but they're not showing the structures. And then on page 8, again, this is the water requirement that I talked about just a few minutes ago, that they are not sure what kind of water they're going to need. But however, they are planning for they're putting 2-inch water lines, water services. And so that does give us some kind of a hint, but Rob wanted me to make it clear that with fire flows, sometimes the building size on those big commercial buildings may require even more than a 2-inch service line. Those are things that we will take care of when the construction drawings, but it's just kind of a heads up for them right now. And then I don't know how Michael missed this because he puts them on all of them, but for some reason he did not put the written statement on the plat that there's an adequate building envelope with regards to hazard slope, building, water, and zoning setbacks. And so he just needs to add that. So with those few things, oh, one last thing. The commercial landscape buffers, we just want to note on there, they were supposed to, a preliminary plat was supposed to show the commercial landscaping and lighting plans for the public park strips. and show potential areas for the buffers. We don't want the actual site plan for the commercial buildings at this point because we know they don't know that, but we do want the landscaping plans for the public park strips and the designated landscape buffers. So that is something that's a little bit different than the plans that Michael's usually used to drawing, and so we would like that addressed as well. However, those are all things that will happen as part of the construction plans as well. So if you do feel like you're inclined to approve this with conditions, then we're recommending the following conditions: that they address the comments in red that we've just reviewed. They address the comments from other staff members, and I've attached a copy of Aaron Walker's letter in here. And Kent, did you get a copy of this packet with Aaron Walker's letter attached to it? Did you email him a copy of the? If you did, I didn't. Just the agenda. Okay, but the agenda has a link to this packet on it. So I'll give you mine after I get done reviewing. Is that okay? And then Rob had some comments. These are the same comments we've reviewed this as staff a couple of times. These comments were on the previous review as staff. The 2-inch meters need to be shown as meter vaults, not barrels. That's one of the things that is kind of a gray area, whether that's a call out on the preliminary plat. It's definitely going to happen in the construction drawings. It's kind of like the warning about the fire flow. We'll need to have some look-see, and that falls into them working on what they feel like their water requirements are going to be for the property. So we've still got a little bit of work that way, but that can all be worked out between the preliminary plat and the construction drawings, especially since we've called it out in this meeting. The 6-inch sewer laterals will have a limitation on their depth. It talks about a 1% grade allowing gravity to work from the south. At some given point on this plat, it won't work as gravity. Lift pumps will likely be required to make the wastewater system function. Once again, that will be brought to light and worked out during the construction drawings, but we do want to make sure they have a heads up on that. And then there's a note about the storm drains being capped and plugged watertight until the retention and detention is figured out for these sites. And then he again calls out the the cross section on the street, and so does Ryan. And a lot of that has to do with making sure it's striped accordingly. They're showing the extension of the asphalt, but they're not talking about any striping plan. And then it does give a caveat. This review is not all inclusive. Other members of staff may have additional comments. When they provide us the information that we're talking about and we work it out with the construction drawings, there will probably be some back and forth there to make sure that everything is works out and meets all of our code. The applicant will continue to meet all relevant federal, state, county, and Providence City rules, laws, codes, ordinances. Approval by the city of any application or paperwork submitted does not alleviate the owners and or their agents from their responsibility to understand and conform to local, state, and federal laws. Providence City approval is not intended to and cannot be construed to allow any laws to be violated. So, once again, if you're comfortable with staff following up on those items in red, you could certainly approve this conditionally. If you want to see that come back to you before they move to the next one, to the final plat, then you could continue this till your next meeting to give them a chance to address those items. Either way, the staff will make sure that it meets the code. So, if you have any questions.
Any questions for Scarlett?
I just have one, if that's
Go
all
ahead,
right.
Michael.
Talking about depending on the size of the building and so forth,
Mm-hmm.
and Rob talks about that, you know, the 2-inch line going in, depending on what building would to go in there and so forth, it might be something needed. So that would be addressed, whether, as they come in with construction plans or whatever, so that they're not having to go back and redo something. It would be done before any line was,
That's certainly our preference, is to
Yeah.
make sure that's all talked out and talked through,
yeah,
so that we don't want to limit them in any way, but if the infrastructure that they install limits them, then we want to make sure that that's reflected on the plat. It may have to say something like, buildings no larger than 10,000
Right,
square feet, or something
of
like
that.
that. So, but those are things we will work out during the construction phase when we
Okay.
figure out which way they need to go.
perfect. Thank you, Scarlett.
The striping you were talking about, was that for crosswalks?
And bicycles,
Okay.
the bicycle lane and the crosswalks, yes.
Where's the nearest crosswalk?
On 300 South, right at the intersection.
Yeah,
And it should already be, I think that part's already striped. I think the main thing we're concerned with is the bicycle striping
Okay.
coming off. We just need to make sure we make sure that it comes around and that UDOT is fine with the way they make the right-hand turn off of the 165, and that our bicycle lane doesn't interfere with that. So we want to see that striping.
So there's not striping now for the bicycle lane?
Not where this is.
yeah, because it doesn't have the sidewalk and that kind of stuff yet, but that would be
Yeah.
dealt with like around, like where the,
Yeah, there's a few places on 300 South where the striping is on the south side of the road, but there's a few places, and this is one of them, where since there's no curb gutter, and we know that this project is in place and going to be coming, and they're going to tear up that asphalt and add to it, not all of it, but they will tear up a little bit and add to it, then they will be required to do the striping at that point.
There's striping now, but it will be destroyed basically, and then
Well, a little bit may be destroyed, but the part that we're talking about hasn't been striped because the asphalt isn't even there. It's dirt, gravel, side of the road right now.
it's undeveloped.
expand the road.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm just trying to understand. There's bike striping in parts of 300 South, but not in this.
Yes, because we knew that this was going to change in the relatively near future.
Okay, like for the townhouses right next to it. Is there bike striping there?
I will have to check. I'm not sure if they did that part or not.
Would we have required that or wanted it?
We would have striped that because that first phase of townhouses came in before we had our bicycle striping plan in place, so we would have striped that. But developers now that are coming in with subdivisions or adding to the asphalt, we're having them do the striping.
Sorry, one more
Go ahead.
question about the non-developable land
Mm-hmm.
side. Who owns that part?
Well, they own a little bit of it.
Like into the middle of the stream or something?
No, they're mostly you are just to the bank, right? The north bank. Yes, the north bank. But there is a little bit, as you can see on the illustration that they provided, there is a little bit of non-developable, or it may be developable. We'll have to measure it out for sure and see. But there is a little bit of sensitive area there that they will have to work with. That will come into play more with the actual site plan for whatever gets built on this property. But we want that person, what the final plat is supposed to do is have enough information on it so that when somebody buys the lot, they know what they're getting into. There will be a note, or there will be hash marks or something indicating that if you buy this lot, there may be sensitive area on there that you will have to mitigate. So that's kind of what our goal is to do enough on the preliminary plat so that when we move to final, the final plat has enough information without putting so much information on that you lose the information. It has enough information so people can make intelligent decisions when they purchase property.
Okay, anyone else? All right, thank you, Scarlett. Okay, Kent Dunkley, would you like to come up and speak?
Only if there are questions.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Kent Dunkley?
So what are we, I know there's a development going on, but I don't know much about the development. Is it for a certain type of housing or?
Commercial.
Commercial?
They are proposing, this property is zoned commercial highway, so they're proposing 2 commercial pads with the intent that those pads will be occupied with sales tax generating businesses. In that, there is a provision in there that within a development, you can have some non-sales tax producing businesses, but it has to be, it's a percentage. You can either, like using Macy's development where the Macy's store is, it's called Alder Square. Macy's has America First within its store. And so there's a code that says how much square footage a sales tax producing store can have if they incorporate a non-sales tax producing business within them. And that's 12%. So America First, the space they take up within the Macy's store could be no more than 12%. You'll also notice that the development on the whole has two existing credit unions. They have banks. They have Chase Bank on the north, and they have, I think it's Golden West Credit Union on the corner of 100 South and 165. Those are looked at a little bit differently. They are looked at with the development on the whole, and it's based on the square footage of the planned buildings, and they can be no more than 15% of the overall development. So the whole purpose of that commercial highway zone is to not only get the cake and the frosting, but the ice cream. We want to have the commercial property tax that comes off of those buildings, but we also want to have sales tax producing businesses that occupy those buildings. And that's what commercial highway, that's the difference between commercial highway and commercial general. Commercial general can have sales tax in it as well, but commercial highway demands it be in there for the majority of the development. So these two plots, or these two spots, the plan right now is, in the future it may change depending on market and whatnot. Kent could address that better than I can, but the plan right now is to have that divided into 2 lots. One that fronts is right adjacent to 300 South, and then one directly south of that. And their shared driveway access will come in. As you notice, the one in the back is like a flag. It's actually got the pole that comes out to meet the access that comes in. So that shared access that is at Judges right now will be widened. And so you won't be driving on dirt to get in anymore. You'll drive on a wider access. It will be widened, and that's where you'll excuse me, access the back lot as well as the front lot.
Okay.
But that's the point of this one, is to have 2 commercial pads.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions?
I don't have anything. I was gonna just show you that. This is where Judges is next to it. This is a property. It's been undeveloped. That's why you're gonna see that expand for the street and so forth. And then the bike lane does stop just a little bit.
George, your
just where the
question for Ken?
townhouses are.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can't we, can you,
Or Carla, it doesn't
Oh,
really
okay.
matter.
all right. Joe has a question.
Well, I didn't know if you guys,
I'm okay.
We're good?
Yep, thank you.
so I think where it got a little confusing for me was in reading the letter from the Logan City Fire Department. And I'm just gonna quote from the letter. It's at the very bottom of the first page. It says, access for a fire department vehicle to get within 150 feet of all areas of the proposed buildings, parentheses, townhouses, end parentheses, is likely inadequate and will need to be reevaluated on a future submittal if approved. And I got lost with the term townhouses in there. Are they talking about the townhouses?
This commission approved townhouses in a different zone, and that's what we were after. That got changed by the city council to highway commercial. So that's where the townhouses was, is because initially that's what we wanted, that's what you granted us, and then it was pulled away from us.
Okay.
And that's as nice as I can get on that.
Yeah.
And in answer to your question, right now, all we're trying to do is separate from Fox Hollow to make a legal 2-lot subdivision, like Scarlett said, with 2 commercial pads. Ultimately, that's not what we want. We still want townhouses on the back because we think that fits. But that's not the current zone. And so all we're trying to do now is get a commercial pad. And really what I wish would happen is someone would come and buy both pads and do something on their own. That's what I wish would happen. But before we can sell anything, it's got to come and be approved as a 2-lot commercial subdivision.
Okay.
That's what we're after right now.
So this portion of the letter, the fire department evaluator just had it confused.
He may have
May have.
saw the previous plan where we did show townhouses on the back parcel, but that's no longer. That's not in the works. That's not on the preliminary plan. It's not in the cards right now.
Okay. Hold on for just one more second. What he says in the point above that, it says the access street between what appears to be 2 rows of townhomes appears to be approximately 250 feet in length, period. Dead-end access roads longer than 150 feet require an approved turnaround. Now, my question is, since there's not townhouses, is he saying that because there are townhouses on the other side of the property with the, what's the name of it?
Fox Hollow.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. That he needs to have access that wasn't provided for by Fox Hollow within theirs?
Fox Hollow, the west road on Fox Hollow, which would be east of the 2-lot subdivision that we're talking about, is no longer, it doesn't dead end anymore. It goes over the spring and into what will be 4 new buildings, and there will be a turnaround there. But currently, it does dead end at the spring, or it did. It's being built right now over the spring.
Okay. Well, my concern is I was wondering if we didn't anticipate that with the Fox Hollow 2, and this was becoming your problem as a part of it.
Anticipated with Fox Hollow too. There was just, well, and there was also in the first plat that we worked with, that Aaron's first letter was generated off of, you had parking that was going to be shared with Fox Hollow, and now you've adjusted that line as well, right? So the parking that, that was on the east side in that flat, not this one, but the one when you had 3 lots, 2 commercial in the front and 1 in the back, there was that one area on the east that was designated for parking for the townhomes. I
That,
think that added some of the confusion.
and that stays, the parking stays, and I can give you a copy of a plat showing the parking, but the parking actually goes with Fox Hollow, with the townhouses. But it's not part of what we're talking about tonight. It's, they took some land from these 2-lot subdivisions because they needed more parking for the townhomes. So they took some land. Initially, this piece was over 2.5 acres, and now it's about 2.3 acres. They took a quarter or a third of an acre to create about 19 parking spaces.
Okay.
But that's not part of this commercial subdivision.
anymore.
It's adjacent to, but not part of.
Okay.
Would you like to see that?
No, I'm
Joe?
okay with it, Kent.
Okay.
I need to just make the following statement. Kent came in as a friend and talked to me about, is this the one that we were talking about, what the city council did? I missed the planning commission meeting where the planning commission approved that and then went to the city council and,
You recommended,
what's that?
you recommended it.
Right.
Did I?
No, the planning commission.
You said planning commission approved.
We recommended it.
Recommended.
Thank you. But I was not at the meeting when the planning commission recommended it. And the city council evidently, which is their prerogative, voted to adjust to the commercial. Kent came in and talked to me about the process. I didn't charge him. It was just a friend conversation about my understanding of what the city council could and couldn't do. But I feel like I need to at least put that on the table. I don't think it disqualifies me, and I plan on voting on this.
Very good. Thank you. Anything else?
No, I just.
Julie?
I don't have anything at this time.
I was just gonna say, it almost seems like the letter from the fire department is almost looking at the previous map and raising those issues, which is not, doesn't have anything to do with that anymore.
I'm assuming. I don't know the
Yeah.
date of the letter, but.
Yeah.
but that's
Well, I
what
looked
was-
at that and it said August 24th, so it's
Oh,
a
wow.
recent letter, but those things were from before, so.
That, I don't know when that
Maybe a
meeting
revised-
was, in
yeah.
June or,
I think one of the things Aaron is doing is kind of like some of the comments that we made about the service line sizes. and
Right.
Things like that. I think he's just saying, we know that down the road he'd like to do something different. And so if that's the direction you go, here's the heads up that you need to.
Okay, so maybe just some cautionary stuff. But for these 2 pieces of commercial property,
townhouses
does-
don't
yeah,
apply.
it doesn't have any
today,
effect with it,
no.
yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Kent? All right, thank you. Okay, so the item says that we may take action on this preliminary plat. So any other comments or thoughts? And then if somebody wants to make a motion, I guess.
I don't have any more comments. If nobody else does, I would make a motion. I would make a motion that we recommend, no,
One that you actually do.
approve.
Mhm.
Okay. That we approve the Fox Hollow plat for a 2-lot commercial subdivision, subject to the findings of facts, conclusions of law, and conditions as stated forth in the staff report.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve the request.
I'll second it.
And John seconds that. Any other discussion? Okay, those in favor of approving the Fox Hollow West preliminary plat as presented tonight, would you please indicate? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I think I'm gonna abstain
Okay.
based on what I said.
So 4 ayes, no nays, and 1 Joe is not voting on that tonight. So thank you. Okay, thank you.
Can I still bring Joe popcorn next time?
Just
Just so
him?
you know,
You'd have to-
I abstain.
You have to bring it for all.
You have to bring it for everyone.
My
Yeah.
vote.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you, Ken.
thank you. Okay, item number 3, review the moderate income housing report and current developments. The Providence City Planning Commission review, discuss, and may take action on the moderate income housing report presented by the staff. And I guess we'll have Scarlett take a seat over here, and we'll let you share with us.
This actually achieves one of our moderate income housing, one of the steps is that we will report on our report and our progress every year. And so I apologize for all the paper. Usually we do everything by electronic, but I started out with a very small summary, and then I got a few questions, a few phone calls from some folks that were looking, just looking at Providence, trying to see what the potential was for different types of development. So since I had to start getting some things for them, I decided I would incorporate it all into one report and present it to you. So the first thing that I'd like to go over is the document that looks like this with the blue. And this was not in the packet, but I've given the information to Ty so that he will post it on the website so that it will be available for the public. The first part just explains our residential zoning codes. This is, as it shows you, this comes right out of Providence City Code, Chapter 10-4, Establishment of Districts. But I just summarized that information. In our moderate income housing report, we had to do what is called entitled units. And the state gives us the definition of entitled units, which are units that are legally allowed to be built under current zoning, existing development agreement, or other legal mechanism. And the way that Providence City interpreted that, and there were lots of discussion among cities about how to interpret this, and we kind of came to a sort of a gentleman's agreement among all the cities how we would interpret it, but not every city may do it exactly like this. So we tried to explain how we interpreted it, and we had the moderate income housing report. Even though it was not due until August 1st, and the reporting period actually goes through July 31st, they wanted this information to be as of May 1st. So that's why it's a little bit different than some of the rest of the report, because it was specifically requested by the state to have this as of May 1st, 2025. So at that point in time, Providence City had 183 recorded final plat vacant lots that have not requested building permits, and 160 vacant parcels with various residential zoning that have not requested a building permit, for a total of 343 units. And the vacant parcels that we're talking about are just legal parcels of property scattered throughout the city that don't need a final plat to be built on, because they're a legal sized piece of property that could be built. So now, and it is only through the recorded, we only put them on here if there was an actual plat recorded. So like in the case of Danny McFarland's Homes on the Knoll, even though I believe the total, well, I've got it somewhere, but I think it's 96 lots that he has approved through preliminary. This wanted to know, this is pretty much shovel ready for somebody to come in and just build their house once they get their building permit. So he only has 22 or 32, I can't remember, but he only has phase 1 that actually has gone through the process, got the final plat recorded, and has the infrastructure in place that we could issue building permits. So that's the difference between what entitled units are versus just property that's planned for. And so to break it down for us, later on in the report, you will see that I went through and went one step further and took each development that's in progress and put the acreage that was involved and the number of lots and where we're at in the development stage with them. But the moderate income housing report also requires that we review our accessory dwelling units. Utah code defines an accessory dwelling unit as a habitable living unit added to, created within, or detached from a primary single-family dwelling and contained on one lot. And then they also have a specific code for an internal accessory dwelling unit, and that mandates that in any area zoned primarily for residential use, the use of an internal accessory dwelling unit is a permitted use, except for in a couple other subsections. A municipality may not establish any restrictions or requirements for construction or use of one internal accessory dwelling unit within a primary dwelling, including a restriction governing the size of the internal lot or dwelling unit in relation to the primary dwelling, the total lot size, street frontage, or internal connectivity. A municipality's regulation of architectural elements for internal accessory dwelling units shall be consistent with the regulation of single-family units, including single-family units located in historic districts. So state code came out a few years ago and said you will have, every city, you will have internal accessory dwelling units. There were a lot of cities that had heartburn with that. Providence was not one of them. We actually have had internal accessory dwelling units since the 90s. We took them out for a while because we kept the code in place to regulate those that were legal, but we took out the ability for new ones for a few years. And then while we made sure that we had all our infrastructure and everything in place, and then about 2 years before the state code came out mandating this, Providence City put internal accessory dwelling units back into the code that we could start issuing for new ones. And we also allowed detached accessory dwelling units. The state code is looking very seriously at doing the same thing with detached accessory dwelling units that they did with internal accessory dwelling units. And that is saying that in residential zones, you will allow detached accessory dwelling units along with internal accessory dwelling units. Now, there's a lot of discussion going on about that right now. The cities, as you can imagine, are a little bit concerned. They want to still have the regulation. They want to be able to, some cities think it's fine to have both units be tenant occupied. Other communities like Providence, we want to have one of the units owner occupied and the other one can be tenant occupied, of course. In Providence, you get to choose. You can either have an internal accessory dwelling unit or a detached. You can't have both. But the state, And there are many cities that are very similar to Providence. Um, so that's one of the points that those cities want to be able to preserve, is that they want the state to say, yes, you have to allow them, but they don't want the state to tell us that we have to turn a single lot into now 3 dwelling units. And so we accepted the fact that we turned it into 2 dwelling units, one way or the other, but we don't want to turn it into 3. At least that's the general feeling of the group of communities that I've been involved with on a committee through the Utah League of Cities and Towns. So we have to report the number. One of our criteria is to report the number of ADUs. To encourage property owners to report an ADU, the city offers a $100 incentive upon proof of recording the owner occupancy deed restriction has been recorded. We have no idea, in all honesty, how many internal ADUs we have in the city. Many people are very reluctant to go record that deed restriction. They're not reluctant to follow the rule and make sure one of the units is owner occupied, but they don't want to have their property reevaluated as a home with a rental unit in it. And so in order to help offset that, we were hoping that if we did the $100, we could get people to come in and record that deed restriction. Not so much that we want the deed restriction recorded, but that we want to know who's got those internal units so we can report it and let the state know we are doing our part. And we had 2 people take us up on that.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
How is that advertised? I'm just curious. And then is there a fee? They don't pay a fee or anything to have that, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
The way it's advertised, I put it out in the city newsletter. We pop it out on social media every now and again. It's on the website, on the accessory dwelling unit page on the website. So we probably, and we tell people about it all the time. We encourage people when they call and ask, and we say, by the way, if you actually have one and you're just asking these follow-up questions, if you'll do this, we can get you $100. But that's been, when I've talked to people, their biggest concern is, well, what that would do to their property tax to acknowledge that
Right.
unit. So,
Wouldn't they have a $25 recording fee?
they
with the
probably
county?
would.
And
yeah.
then they'd have to figure out how to get the deed restriction prepared by a title company or an attorney.
Well, actually, we did one better for them. We went through our city attorney and prepared a format. So they really only have to put the legal description off of their property into it. So they wouldn't have to have that preparation fee if they didn't want to. We tell them all the time, now, this is a legal document. If you would like, you should probably have your attorney review this. But we did prepare a template that they can use as a starter.
Good, thank you.
So
So what would happen to their taxes?
they would increase.
They would increase
Mhm.
by, like, the percentage of the
I have no
rental?
idea what the increase would be. It would depend on the value of the home and
Right,
everything.
but what's the math involved with it?
Oh, that's the county assessor's office that does that. But I did call the county assessor a couple of years ago when people first started telling me, no, we're not going to do that because we don't want our property taxes to increase. So I called and said, would property taxes actually increase if they made no changes to the home at all? It already had the second kitchen unit and everything. They didn't need a building permit or anything. So it's the same house. They're just going to rent part of it out. And they said, yes, they would. So,
Isn't that because they then treat it as a commercial, a portion as commercial as opposed to residential?
I don't know if they treat it as a portion as commercial or if they treat it as, like when you have a second residential unit, if you own a unit here and a unit in, yes, it's loss of primary status. So part of it would be considered primary status and part of it wouldn't. I don't think they treat it as commercial, but I do think they treat it as rental property or as not primary residence property.
Would there be a difference between long-term rental and short-term rental?
The short-term rental, we actually don't allow, they can have short-term rentals, but they have to clarify them, and yes, there probably is, but they also has to pay transient room tax on short-term rentals. So these accessory dwelling units, in fact, our city code says an internal ADU cannot be used as a short-term rental. So if somebody wants to do one as a short-term rental, they can do that, but they have to come through the conditional use process and make sure that that's getting reported so that the transient room tax and stuff is remitted to the city. So they can use part of their house as a short-term rental. They just can't use an internal accessory dwelling unit as a short-term. So anything in an internal accessory dwelling unit has to be more than a 30-day lease. Or a detached one for that matter, has to be more than a 30-day lease. And then we had three zoning clearances. Two of those three zoning clearances also received building permits during the period of August 1st through 2024 through July 31st, 2025. I think that the third one probably received its building permit in August. So we have had 3 new ADUs in just the last year. As of July 31st, 2025, it's estimated the city has 8 active internal ADUs and 10 active detached ADUs. And we're pretty sure we're very close on the detached. But like I said, the internals, we have no idea. So, so this next part, I worked with Colton this morning, and we decided to kind of say, so, okay, we've done this. What impact does it have? And how does it apply to our actual goal of the state of getting affordable housing? In Cache County, excuse me, the median household income is $78,300. The high end of the moderate income housing definition is 80% of the median income. And we don't get to use our city incomes on these, or our city medians. We have to use the county medians on the way this reporting goes. So the median income that we're looking at is $62,640. So what can I buy with a household income of $62,640? There is a website called NerdWallet that has a calculator for home mortgage, and I put some things in there just to see what would happen. So $400,000 was the price that they're using. Now the governor talks closer to $450,000, but we'll start with $400,000 with a 10% down payment. If you do less than a 20% down payment, you're generally going to have to pay PMI, private mortgage insurance. So these totals, since I just used the 10% down, because a lot of places will allow you to qualify with the 10% down. Some won't, but some will. But then you have to pay the PMI. So these scenarios include the 10% down, and so they include PMI. And I looked up the interest rate, and the current interest rate, it said, was 6.667 for a conventional loan. I didn't do the FHA because they have some other weird qualifiers, and then you have to go, they would change all the numbers, and I didn't want to get into that. So it's 30-year fixed. The monthly payment, including the PMI, it would be $2,552 for a $400,000 loan. And that's if you had a credit rating in the low 700s. So if we looked at the median household income, you divide that 78.3 by 12 to get your monthly, and then you take the debt to income ratio, and they recommend no more than 36% of debt to income. That leaves you $2,349. So if you use that with the 6.6%, you could afford a $365,000 home. If your on the high end of the median income with the 6240, and you do the math, you end up with 1879, and that would be a $285,000 home. You can probably get homes, you can probably get some mortgages working through certain different programs, but just for example's sake, I just used that straight conventional calculator. And I apologize, I missed that I have a 4 there for some reason, and I don't know why. Yeah, so each year I ask the county treasurer to provide a list of homes under a certain price point. This year I ask for homes valued by the county at $400,000 or less. This is not the market rate. This is the county's appraisal rate that they use. There were 68 twin homes that met that criteria, 355 townhomes, 1 accessory dwelling unit, which I found interesting, and 244 single-family homes, and they would be detached because townhomes are single-family homes technically too, and 150 condos for a total of 818 units valued at $400,000 or less. I did a Zillow search today for units with a sales cap of 400,000. There were 12 listings. 6 were townhomes and 6 were condos. I searched for the Zillow with a sales cap of 500,000. In addition to the 12 townhomes and condos, there were 10 single-family homes that you could purchase for less than 500,000.
Were most of those in rural communities?
They're in Providence.
Oh, right here in Providence?
Yeah, these are what we have available in Providence.
Oh, I thought you were talking countywide.
Nope, this Zillow search was specifically for Providence. And I didn't put it on here, but the townhomes, you would be able to, a couple of the townhomes, you were under 365,000. There were some condos that were 285,000 or less, but you wouldn't even be able to buy a townhome for most of the townhomes were well over 285,000 that were listed. Now, not in the appraised value unit, of course, but in that were listed. So that kind of lets you know where we're at as far as the availability of affordable units. Development and land use activity. The rezone finally did happen on the 6.15 acres. That was the Gustavus property that you worked with the developer on. That happened, and they changed that zone to R16 on August 20th. The property purchase is under contract. No development plans have been submitted. But the way they got that rezone, they came up with the idea of wanting to do a deed restriction. I did talk to our city attorney. We really didn't want any part of saying yes, do a deed restriction. So we said, if you want to work something out with the seller and do it as part of your sales contract, that's fine. The city wanted to be very careful. We did not want something to go south down the road and have anybody come back and say that that was actually a taking. You know, sometimes even though it's voluntary, you're volunteering to do it because you know that you're not going to get what you want any other way. So is that really voluntary? And so we just wanted to make sure that the city was, while we weren't opposed to the idea of them doing that, we just wanted to make sure it didn't have anything that looked like the city was promoting that voluntary act. So that's why it's part of the sales thing. And I guess if they end up not agreeing to it, then the sale won't go through and they'll have to do something different.
This is the one that the planning commission recommended not rezoning it.
Right. And but you had talked about the development agreement or deed restrictions. I think you mentioned them in the planning commission meeting. And we talked about it with the developer, and no one was really comfortable doing the development agreement option, the way the state code is with that. And so they came up with the purchase agreement, and so we'll see how that all works out.
So I'm a little confused though. So now it's zoned as R16?
Yes,
And what was it zoned before?
agriculture.
So, but it got zoned without approval or?
No.
Our recommendation was not to approve it for a rezone to R16.
Right.
Because that would, even though they didn't plan on having the number of lots in there, that would allow if it got rezoned to that without some type of deed restriction, they could put a number of lots in. But ours is a recommendation, and the city council didn't take that recommendation,
Oh, okay,
but that's their prerogative too.
okay. So the city council approved it. I see.
Yes. And then, in August, then, the next page, page 3, that goes through all of our developments that are in progress. We have Fox Hollow Townhomes, Phase 1. The plat was recorded, in 2022. There's 33 units, and it is complete. Phase 2, the plat was recorded in 2025. There are 25 units, and infrastructure and units are under construction. Fox Hollow West is the one that you're just now worked on tonight. Homes on the Knoll, that's the one that I explained. The preliminary plat was approved with 5 phases for a total of 98 lots. The Phase 1 final plat was recorded in 2023, had 34 lots. The infrastructure is complete, and building permits are being issued. Providence Highlands, Phases 4 through 15. This has 2 different zones in it. There's R120 has 24 lots, and R112 has 107 lots. It's approved. The preliminary plat was approved with 17 phases and a total of 131 lots. The final plats for Phase 4, 14 lots, and Phase 5 has 7 lots, have been approved but not recorded. The infrastructure is under construction. And a developer certainly has the right to build the infrastructure before he records the final plat. That way he doesn't have to put a performance bond in place. Hilldale. This is the one that Jody Robbins came and visited with you about. It's an R112 zone. It's conditionally approved preliminary plat with 2 phases and a total of 37 lots. And he just brought his final plat package in today, so we will start working on the final plat on that. Shoreline phases 2A and 2B. This is the one that we approved, the second phase, and then when they went to record, the recorder found some kind of a hiccup, and we ended up having to do a boundary adjustment, formalize the boundary adjustment that was done several years ago with Logan City. That's the reason they had to separate 3 lots off into 2B. 2A, the final plat was recorded in 2024. It has 21 lots, and the infrastructure is under construction. We're not at the point we can issue building permits on that yet. 2B, the final plat was recorded in 2025. There's 3 lots, and the infrastructure is under construction. Shoreline Estates Phase 3. This is located in the general area of 476 North Shoreline Drive. It's an R112, and the final plat has been approved, but they have not recorded it. There's 21 lots. They've started their grading, but they have not started any of the infrastructure installation. Vineyard Phase 5 is in an R16 zone. their final plat was recorded in 2024. 22 lots, infrastructure's complete, and building permits are being issued. Vineyard Phase 6 is the same thing. It has 21 lots. The infrastructure is substantially complete on that one, and building permits are being issued. Then on page 4, we have the inactive development that is Spring Creek Townhomes. It's a mixed-use development with 87 single-family attached units and one 22,891 square foot commercial pad. It's located in the general area of 265 North Gateway Drive, just right behind snuggled in behind the veterinary and these commercial buildings over here. The plat was recorded in 2022. This one is completely stalled out. There's no private infrastructure installed and no buildings on it. And then this is one that I added on at the request of some of the people that had been calling me doing due diligence. And I looked at all of our zoned vacant land, and I also put together a couple of maps for you, and these are on the website, so you can pull them up and you don't have to squint to see. But this top picture is our existing zoning map. This bottom picture is the proposed zoning for that came out of the 2020 general plan. One of the things that you might want to look at is how well we've actually followed the general plan on our zoning. And you will see that in some places we've followed pretty good, and in some places not so much, which is okay at this point because the general plan is a guideline. And if things change after the general plan was approved and the council and the planning commission feel like there's good reason to do something different, you can certainly do so. And that has happened a couple of different times. Just to help you kind of orient, the dark blue part, that is LCR. The part on the north end of the city, that is Vineyard. The part that's zoned LCR on the west side of the city, that very furthest, or purple, whatever color that really is, that is part of the Alder property. We have quite a few parcels that are zoned agriculture, scattered throughout the city, that have, and in all total, I went through each parcel, and I also put on underneath them what the general plan anticipates. So in the first two parcels, they're located along 165, and the general plan anticipates the zoning of these parcels as, that should say C, not G, CHD, Commercial Highway District, for a total of 21.78 acres. There's an 11-acre parcel that the general plan anticipates zoning RM12. There's a 7.25 acre parcel that the general plan anticipates zoning R110. And there's a 5-acre plan located in the general area of 635 South, 285 West, that they anticipate the general plan anticipates R110. One of the things I did with these parcels, there are many parcels that are zoned single family, zoned R112, that may be available for somebody to come in and do a small 2-lot subdivision. I didn't count any of those parcels. And on the vacant land, I looked at anything that was 3 acres or more. So if it was less than 3 acres, I didn't put it on this list. So there's some vacant land that's not on this list. The parcels that are ag that are that the general plan considers that we would look at RM12, there's 22 acres available for that. there's, excuse me, 9.49 acres that the city anticipated that it would really like to purchase property for a park. And we've tried to do that several times and we've not been successful, but we do show it on the general plan. That's up in the southeast bench area. And then there's several parcels. If you look on page 5, that the general plan anticipates changing to R112, which is 74.49 acres. So as you can see, the general plan did not anticipate, well, the general plan anticipated that we would have zoned some property mixed use that we ended up zoning R112. And there's we purchased a park. The general plan anticipated that would be R16, and we purchased a park. And so there's a couple of places there that we had anticipated more higher development, higher growth. We do show a small area that we anticipate that's going to be, that we anticipate would be our mixed use. But the lion's share that we anticipate doing is R112. So that when the public comes in and says that all we're looking at is to do high density, we are focusing on affordability, which generally you have to have smaller lots or townhomes or condos to be able to have affordable. But our general plan really does anticipate that we are still very focused on having a single family 12,000 square foot minimum lot size throughout Providence City. So sometimes when people come in and I think the thing that's important to remember when they come in and their emotions are high, some of the things that they pick and choose to put out there for you are not exactly the way our general plan has anticipated. So, and then we do have 8 acres that the general plan anticipates is R16 that is still in ag. And then we go through the commercial. There's 10.47 that we anticipate going as commercial general. And then there's another 21.67 that we anticipate, or wait a minute, these properties are not going to change the zone. These properties are already zoned commercial general district, but we have not had any development on them. And that's 10.47. We have 21.67 that are zoned commercial highway district, but we have not had any development plans presented on them. We have 50.84 acres that are currently zoned life cycle residential and haven't had any development plans brought in on them. And then in the mixed use district, we have 2.31 acres that we have not had any development plans brought in. In the multiple RM18, which is 18 units, we have 7 acres. This is along Highway 165. We have not had any development plans on that. However, they are running water lines along Highway 165 in anticipation of some of that development. And then we have in the R120 district, which is lot sizes of 20,000 square feet. We have 72.54 acres zoned that we have not received any plans for that. And then in the R112, we have 3.9 acres that we've not received any development plans on. And I actually think I made a mistake on that R1. No, that is right. That R120 is correct. And then we have several parcels of property that are either within the city or adjacent to, that we have not, that are still in the county. We have 10.47 acres adjacent to the North City boundary in the area of 355 East Spring Creek Parkway. That's across the street from that church that's on 300 East and Spring Creek Parkway. We have 5.03 acres. That's an unincorporated island within the city that is just up from Fox Hollow Townhomes, just east of Fox Hollow Townhomes, right there. There's a really nice residence on that property. We have, but it is still in the unincorporated portion of the county. We have 3.3 acres that is an unincorporated island between the city and Millville, that's zoned a agricultural 10 in the city, in the county. And then we have, this one is down along 165. It's right straight across from Blackstone's entrance pretty much. And then, but that could go either way. It's in Millville's annexation policy plan as well. And then we have another 12.8 acres that is just south of where they built Copper Heights subdivision, kind of south and west of you out there, on 450 West, 700 South. And it's currently zoned ag in the county, but it could go either way as well, either in Millville or Providence. But those are, so that's what's available for us to have. The other thing that I gave you that I kind of want to just have you can ask questions if you'd like, but this packet like this, you've seen this. This is our moderate income housing plan. This is the strategies that we picked a couple of years ago, in 2022, November of 2022, so 3 years ago. And in there, so the strategy, the objective was what we already had in our general plan. And then we looked under our existing general plan, and we picked a strategy, and we got the strategies from this list that I put on here. This is from the state code. This is from Utah Code 109A403. And it starts at the bottom of page 2, that capital A that's in parentheses and capital B. Those are the first two options that we have. And it continues to just above the midpoint on page 3, where it says CC, capital CC in parentheses. So there's 30 options that we can choose from now. When we first started, there wasn't quite that many. We may or may not want to look at these options and reconsider our general plan strategies. It's something that we can certainly think about. If we do want to reconsider a couple of these general plan strategies, there are some code amendments that would be associated with them that we could work into them to help us move forward with our plan, but we certainly don't need to change anything at this point. But that's why you have both those papers, so you can see what the existing strategies are that we're working on, and you can see what the possible strategies are if you feel like, let's say that you feel like this rezoning for density is necessary to facilitate for the production of moderate income housing is causing us grief. Well, if we don't feel like we can do that, then we need to pick another strategy out of that list to replace the strategy. We want to have at least 5 strategies. We're only required to have 4, or excuse me, 3. But if we want to be eligible to apply for certain forms of state funding, which we apply for on a regular basis, then we need to have 5. We need to achieve 5. Two of the strategies both deal with accessory dwelling units. And since people seem to be fairly positive to accessory dwelling units, we used both of those strategies. So technically, we have, in our plan, we only show 6 objectives, but we are technically using 7 of the strategies that are available. But again, we may have utilized, and they're no longer really viable strategies. They're strategies that perhaps we've done the work we anticipated doing. And so it might be that there are strategies that would be better for us to consider. And so that's why I handed out these 2 things for you to just kind of start thinking about, what do we want to do as far as our moderate income housing plan? Or do we feel like what we've got is working really well? Colton and I did some rough math based on the number of townhomes versus single family, and it's really rough math. But we estimated that probably about 20% of the dwelling units in Providence City are either single family attached, which would be townhomes and condos, or apartments. So I don't know. That's one of the things that Ryan has always asked, and we've talked, and no one has given us a good answer. I don't know what the state's idea of having housing is when it comes to percentages. Is 20% the goal that they're after, or is it 42%? I mean, if it is, then we need to figure out some different things. If it's 20%, then we need to continue kind of as a status quo, and every so often make sure that we incorporate a multifamily development into our zoning, along with the single family developments that we do, so our percentages be kind of balanced. But there's nobody that has an answer for that right now. I think the county had it done, but I didn't get a chance to go on their website and look. The next step that Colton and I would like to do, if the county hasn't got it done, is to put down the number of units that we have within each of the different zones, and the average price point, in the average, not market price, but the average assessed value of those, so that you can kind of see the makeup of the city in actual dollars and cents, how we really are doing. Because I think there are a lot of cities that are doing better than they're perceived to be doing. A lot of cities really are making a conscious effort to try and work with the development community to have more affordable housing. The development community is very powerful, and they like to make it sound like we're not working with them, so that the state legislatures will consider changing the code to make it easier for the developers and harder for the city. One of the things that the development community would really like to see, and this sounds like a good thing off the bat, until you start to really think about it, they would like to see statewide infrastructure standards. But even in Providence City, the soils vary from area to area. So to have a standard is maybe a little bit difficult, unless you had multiple standards that considered every kind of different type of soil with throughout the state for all the cities. And I don't know that the state wants to get into that many kind of standards. But that is one of the things that the development community would like to see is a standardized infrastructure, so that they knew no matter where they developed, they would develop to a 66-foot right of way and 30 feet of asphalt or something like that. That's what they would like to see. Like I said, when you first think about that, that sounds like a really good idea. But then when you start to apply it, it's not such a good idea because you don't know. Many cities need to have, if our city comes back to us and says, hey, we want to have bicycle lanes and separated bicycle lanes, not just painted bicycle lanes, separated. Well, that has to increase right of way. If you're really going to do that kind of stuff, you have to increase the right of way to have the separation. So maybe it isn't a great idea to have standard infrastructure. There are quite a few things that the development community would like to see standardized throughout the state. To make it easier for them, they would like to see development processes shortened. There's lots of things that they would like, and the state legislature listens to them a lot. So I think it's important that we show that we are really working within what we have set up and said we'd do, that we're really doing what we're doing. And if we, like I said, if we feel like we need to make some changes, it's important to be proactive and make those changes. So my goal is that if you want to ask some questions, that's great. But probably take some of this home, study it. It'll be online. Kyle will get it posted online so you can.
Test in 2 weeks.
No, but we could have a follow-up discussion in 2 or 4 weeks and whatever you as a commission decide. But I did need to do this as a report to achieve our one goal, so we've done that. Thank you for your patience with me.
Your question?
You can ask all kinds of questions.
So I've read through the entire report while you were talking, and on this objective number 1, it seems like the rezone that was just recently occurred on August 20th, 25 would be a specific example of how the city council has, and I'm not saying this that I'm offended anyway, over the objection of the planning commission recommended. I mean, it sounds good to the state that city council is going to
Yeah.
play it up for all it's worth. Is that stuff you include on the report?
Yes, that is stuff I include on the report. So, yes, I will include that. Well, they're talking about re-evaluating the way the report will be done. This year, the last 3 years, it has been very text-oriented. Their goal was that they wanted cities to tell their story, their development story, and to tell their story of how they're trying to achieve moderate income housing or making affordable housing available throughout their cities. So if you're going to write a story, that's wordy. And that's what they wanted. The problem with that is every city has a unique story to tell. Every city looks at it a little bit different. And so instead of getting 83 stories, because there were 83 cities, there's a few more than that now, but it originally started out, there were 83 of us that are specified cities. Instead of getting these 83 stories and then being able to put that dialogue into a very easy to read chapter book, you got 83 specific different chapters. So instead of having a very concise story to tell the legislature of how cities were doing, you had this big, huge, that nobody was going to take the time to read. So now they, which people did read it. There were a few people that had to read it. They did read through all of it, but still, even when they read it, extrapolating the information in order to make data that could be easily distributed and uniformly distributed was difficult. So now they're changing the way they're changing it now. It sounds like it will be less about the story and more about the numbers. And that's when I think we'll finally start to see people start to say, what kind of percentages are we looking for? And what kind of developer incentives are financing willing to help with, and things like that. There's a lot more puzzle pieces to the puzzle than just the cities and the state changing laws. There's things in the financial community that are preventing people from being able to qualify for loans. One of the things that we'll talk about in the near future is that home ownership zone. Even if we don't utilize that, just going through the motions to put that within our code so it is available out there is a help. But that home ownership zone, the way it's worded right now, from what I've been told from people in the market, it's very difficult for someone to qualify to get into those properties. And then you do have they are deed restricted properties. So then somebody has to monitor, which that somebody is probably the city. We have to monitor, oh, okay, you are supposed to be owner occupied for 5 years. So 5 years from now, whoever takes my place or somebody else is probably going to have to look at that and say, I didn't know I was supposed to be counting if whether they were still owner occupied, or Scarlett knew everybody that was owner occupied, but I don't know if they're owner occupied. And, going to the houses and asking people, are you a tenant or are you a owner? That's kind of invasive. So, there's,
I'm a tenant because my wife owns the house.
there you
So,
go. But, and, and so there's just some things that, while they're really great ideas, some of the long-term effects of those great ideas are a little bit hard to manage at this point. So we've kind of shied away from putting those things in place, but I do think we need to start looking at considering those things and at least have a potential in our code so that somebody could utilize them if we found a good mechanism for them to do so. So.
I have some questions. So how are affordable and versus moderate income housing, those are different, right?
Yes.
Is that defined by like R16, R18?
It's defined by cost. It's whether it's a moderate income housing, it's all based on income and your ability to pay. Moderate income housing is regulated through the federal FHA, Federal Housing Authority. They're the ones that define moderate income housing. I believe it's FHA that defined it.
So they revise their number every year or something, or
It's based on the median income, and generally it's based on the median income of the county. But in in some states, it's based on the median income of the city or the area. But it's based on a median income, and then 80% of the median income is the higher of the annual household income. So not just what a single person makes, but what the annual household income is. So like in Cache County,
for example,
the median income is 78.3, I think, and then the 80% would be considered moderate, and then you might know the percentages, Michael. I only work with the 80 because that's the only one I have to be worried about. But if you are 60%, then you're low, I think, but I can't remember. I don't remember the breakdowns. But that's how it's determined, is what the wage earning of the household is in compared to the median income for the county.
Right.
That is a legal term, that moderate income housing. What the state realized is that in Utah, it's darn hard anywhere to find a home that's going to qualify for moderate income housing status. And so they said, well, along with moderate income housing, we don't want to ignore that. We want to continue to pay attention to that. But we also want to just make it affordable for people. So even though you're above the 80%, you're at the 78.3, you still can't hardly afford anything.
Right.
And so that's the difference between affordable and moderate income housing. Moderate income housing has very set specific standards based off of income and prices based off of income. Where affordable is a little bit more, okay, what could you really do? And so there's a little bit more leeway, but it's sort of lipstick on the pig when all is said and done.
So do we have those numbers, or is it just kind of nebulous, or just?
No, every year
Okay, so
they actually they do the updates. They can redo them monthly, but we focus on the annual
Yeah.
changes in the.
Because, I mean, you did this calculation, but you just used some NerdWallet thing and recommended income ratio.
Oh,
but
I use the Nerd Wallet. It's an online calculator, so all you have to do is plug the numbers in. But I just said that I use Nerd Wallet, so if somebody wanted to go online and say, well, which calculator did you use? That's the one.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, the way you calculated it was using this 36% income, debt to income ratio. Is that the number that they use?
That's
Number
the
the banks use.
that's the standard.
Why aren't we using the number that they use to define the,
Oh, they don't use that.
right, so why wouldn't we use it? in our
No,
example?
moderate income housing doesn't define the debt to income ratio, I don't think.
So how do you define the moderate income housing? Wouldn't you use that debt to income ratio to determine it?
No. The debt to income ratio defines the type of loan you can qualify for.
But
That's a financial thing.
Right, but that defines how, the cost of a house you can purchase.
That's the very point that a lot of people have ignored, is the financial point. That's what I was saying. The cities have worked their hearts out to try and provide opportunities for developers to build homes that people should be able to afford, but because of financing restrictions, all of a sudden they can no longer qualify for those loans. Now, I did have one mortgage person that told me that if somebody has really, really, really good credit, they will consider as much as 49% debt to income ratio if they have more than a 20% down payment and really, really high credit score. But generally, when we're looking at moderate income housing, they may have really good credit scores, but they often don't have anywhere near a 20% down payment. So they're two different animals that are all put together in one jungle.
Okay. All right. What happens if everything gets built out? Then what's the goal?
That's a good question, because there's more than us there's more cities. There are quite a few cities that are in a situation like us, where for all intents and purposes, we have the property on the west side, but everything else on the east side of the highway is pretty much committed. The west side of the highway is not. But that's where it's going to be really difficult, because then you're going to start looking at infill or at repurposing,
Right.
Things like
Why
that.
would you need to even change anything?
The market will drive
Yeah.
that.
Sure.
You know, I think that's,
But, but
seemed to
with
be
all
from-
these state-driven goals, how would you achieve those goals? I just think it's kind of short-sighted by the state to demand goals when it depends on the development of the state of the city.
Well, so what drove it? Not every city, but there were a significant number of cities, quite a few in Cache County, as a matter of fact, that had in their zoning codes, we won't let you build on anything less than a third acre. So so the development community went to the state and said, there's all this available land, but these cities are insisting that we eat it all up in sprawl, and we're supposed to be having X amount of people move into Utah, double or triple our population, whatever it is, by 2050. And if they continue to sprawl, there's not going to be any land to put the houses on. So you've got to do something, state. You got to make these cities rethink their development plans. Paradise City, you have to have 1.25 acres to build a house in Paradise City, or Paradise Town. They're not a city, they're too small. You have to have 1.25 acres. So there's no way that's going to fit in anybody's pocketbook in today's world, except for the very affluent. So the state said, wait a minute, we don't want to have all the ground taken up by a few homes. We want to have room for all these people that are going to be within our state within the next 30 years. So that's when the state started getting involved and saying, hey, cities, if you're a certain population level in a certain size county, you will start to pay attention and stop sprawling and start allowing for higher density development. But that's really what drove it, is there were many communities. Providence was kind of unique, particularly for a community the size that we were, to have the type of housing lots that we've had for the last 20 years. We've had 6,000 square foot lots on our books for 20 years, where many other cities have not had anywhere near that. So we're different than most cities.
I still have another question.
Yeah.
Sorry I'm dominating this, but so if you look at this thing you've shown, you've got some current agriculture places, but this shows, I'm not sure what that is, but
Oh, that general plan at that time recommended that be zoned R120, and that's what it has been zoned as, is R120. So there's a dark green and a light green.
oh, okay.
The dark
So
green is,
basically, all the agriculture is going away.
yes.
But in this, there's a point in here, page 4D2 says, avoid proposing use of land within an agriculture protection area that is inconsistent with the detrimental to the use of land for agriculture.
Yes,
So why don't we want to keep some agriculture?
because the one place that we did have an agricultural protection easement, they sold to a developer, and it is now R112. So we don't have a property owner that wants to continue ag processes to the point that they're in an ag protection area.
Okay.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say, Scarlett, this is fantastic. Tremendous amount of work went in there to do all of that.
Yeah.
And I just, I really appreciate it. This is very
Well, I hope it
helpful.
makes sense.
It makes tremendous sense and saves hours and hours for people looking at what Providence is. What do we have? What can you do? Especially as people look to see what those options are. I just going to tell you, thank you very much. It's a great job.
Yeah, this is
So-
really
Thanks.
helpful.
Yeah, Colton and I are going to work on it. We're trying to figure out a mechanism so that we can keep it up to date, because these numbers will change
Yes.
with every development that we have, every new house that gets built. Our numbers change all the time. And so we're trying to work on a mechanism so that now that we've got this base, we can continue to build upon that. But we're not there yet.
Yeah.
But that's the goal.
Well, it's a great report. Thank you.
You're
That's a
welcome.
lot of,
Thank
well
you for your
organized all the time.
patience.
So I just have a question just out of curiosity, but does anybody pay 20% down anymore? I know you use the 10, because 20 would change that a little bit, right? And make it look like we're doing a little bit better job.
Well, 20% would probably do away with the PMI, which would
Right.
probably take about $300 a month off.
So it'd help a little bit,
Yeah, it would
get
reduce
us a little bit
the
closer.
payment strategy a little, but yeah.
Because you look at those numbers, 365, and there's townhouses and condos under that price, but, and then 285 in Providence. I mean,
There are a few condos that are under
condos,
85.
yeah, but that's, anyway. So I just wonder,
That's why that is just very basic,
yeah,
it's kind of average of I'm sure more people are doing 20%, but there are lending institutions that if you go less than 20%, they add the PMI on. And
Right.
so
absolutely.
that's where I got it from.
Yeah.
And just like the 6.67% interest rate in 3
Yeah.
months, that might change again. Who knows?
Let's
So
hope. Let's hope. Very good, though. That was good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, I've got a quick one. Just for research purposes, when we're looking at the allocations, funding, incentives, and things like that that go towards what we're requesting from the state, is the best place to find that for us? Would that be workforce services, housing, and community development?
yes.
Is that the website that contains all that?
I can also talk to Ryan and have him get that list of grants. I mean, one of the items that they're talking about are called Class B and C roads. And that is the money that a portion of the sales or the gas tax, we get that in order to keep our roads up. If that becomes one of the funds that you have to be eligible for in order to, by achieving your moderate income housing goals, then that's a big one. There are some transportation funds that we have used. We've used Utah Department of Transportation has a technical assistance program. I believe the funding for those programs are tied to the eligibility on it. There are several big grants that the state offers that are tied to the eligibility based on that you perform and achieve your moderate income housing goals. And I think from the state's perspective, and you can kind of understand it, and I feel better about it the way they're going to now. The state's perspective is cities, we gave you 27, now 30 goals that you could choose from, or however many there are. You ought to be able to choose 3 to 5 that you can achieve. And you get to figure out how you're going to do it. You tell us how you're going to do it, and you achieve it. My biggest concern with the way it's been done is that it's been a do-over every time, and all the ground we've achieved up to this point, when they change the rules, we don't get to count that.
Credit.
And so that's one of the points that they are talking very serious with the state about when they do change this new program, is that everything that the cities have worked so hard on in the last 5 years to make sure that the program worked, that they still get to continue to count those towards their success level. But yes, Ryan can probably, I don't get into the financing side of things as much anymore. That's Ryan's, under his purview, all of the funding and the grants. but he could give you the list of funds that they, eligibility is tied to the moderate income housing.
Okay, thank
One of the
you.
things that if you, like we explained before, if your report is disqualified, then we are fined $500 a day, and that money is given to the Olene Walker Fund that goes to support some of the programs that provide funding, some of the programs. All of the money goes towards incentives for people to get into housing, for lower income people to get into housing, moderate to lower income people. And so their thought is, well, if you're not going to try and do it on your own, then we're going to penalize you and you're going to pay into this fund, so the state will have more money to offer people to be able to get into housing. So
Well, very good. So it says we discuss and may take action. Is there action we need to take right
only
now?
action
Or do
I
we-
would like you to take is not formal action. It's just that you put some thought into kind of where you'd like to see us go, and we start having some workshops or something and talking about some of these ordinances that we need to bring forward. But that's the only action, is that you really make yourself familiar with what we are supposed to do right now, and if you're comfortable with it, that's great. But if you're not, if you think there's some choices in that list from
The
A to
objectives.
CC,
Mhm.
then let's rethink that plan.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, appreciate you making that presentation, and so we should, we won't take any formal action, but look at that and look at the objectives and see if there's any recommendations we would have, I guess.
The other thing I'd like you to really do is to take a critical look at both of the maps. And if you don't feel like the way the future rezoning is, then let's talk about some of those things. If you look our existing zoning and you feel like there are places that even though it's zoned R112 now, you feel like maybe that's a place that we should maybe reconsider to R110 or something, then those are things we need to start talking about. So look at the zoning and see if you're comfortable with the way the zoning is laid out through the city too. And drive through the different neighborhoods and think about what you like with the different neighborhoods and what you don't, as far as the zoning goes. So we can kind of, we'll never make everybody happy if we can make 25% happy. I think that's a good goal some days.
Okay, thank you, Scarlett. All right, is there anything else anybody would like to bring up before we close?
I
Was
don't
it-
have anything.
Okay, Joe.
Real quick, I wouldn't mind adding as a standard item on the agenda, just a status update on any follow-up action the city council takes on any resolution or proposal we make, so that we're aware of what they're doing.
Okay,
I don't think it'd be that hard to just, make the report.
okay. We can probably add that on the agenda.
But why don't you work with Bob on that? It's just a suggestion. I'm
No,
not
and
making
I
a
think,
motion on that.
I read recently the city council meeting notes or minutes or whatever, but I think it would be nice to do that, maybe to have that on the agenda, just a quick report on any items in particular that we made a recommendation on and what the outcome was. Yeah, I think that'd be good. Okay, that's a good recommendation.
Make a motion to adjourn.
And we have a motion by Joe to adjourn,
I second.
and we have a second. Any opposed?
No opposed.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Aye.
Sometimes I don't get to watching all those city council meetings, so that's nice.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks,
Good night.
everybody.